Hello Internet, and welcome to a new tutorial. I've been waiting for far too long to make this video, and it's about a special plugin that just came out. You might have heard of it. It's the Soundtoys Superplate. Now, before you close this video thinking it's just another reverb plugin, hear me out. What makes it special is not only the way it sounds, but the way it operates. Because I've never used a plate reverb that operates in the same way, and this is what makes it special for me. Now, I'm not going to waste your time and my time just talking about how awesome it is in the intro. Let's just jump to the DAW and see what it's all about and how you can use it in your productions. Alright, so the video will go like this. First we will start with a quick overview and a history lesson, and then we'll listen to Superplate and I'll show you my tips and tricks for it and how I actually use it. Now, let's start with a quick history lesson and the overview. So, plate reverbs were actually the first reverb units to get installed in studios. They were a replacement for echo chambers because engineers at the time needed something flexible that takes less space and has more control over the reverberation. Plate reverbs are really simple and straightforward. They are basically a tension sheet of metal that vibrates or resonate when audio passes through it, and this is how it creates the reverberation. And this is also how it creates its distinct character. It's dense, lush, and has this metallic feeling to it. Superplate in here gives us access to 5 emulation of 5 legendary plate units and actually gives us more controls than what the actual units offered. Starting with 3 different preamp stages. We have the tube one, we have the transistor one that has also compression in it, and we have the clean one. Now, to drive the first 2 preamps, all what you have to do is crank that input knob in here and you will get this gritty and distorted character to the reverberation. Next, we have the decay knob in here. As you can see, it offers beyond 4 seconds, and as far as I know, the original units didn't offer more than 4 seconds. So this red line in here means that we're using the added decay basically that Soundtoys offers us. Then we have pre-delay, pitch modulation on the reverberation or the wet signal, and then we have the filters in here. Now these are really interesting because if we click on the tweak knob in here, we have, as you can see, a 4-band full parametric equalizer. The low and high pass in here has 3 flavors, 6, 12, and 24 decibels per octave. And the bells in here are classic parametric bells where you can actually change the Q of each one of them using the mouse wheel. Next, we have the pitch modulation rate in here, and if we click on the rate, we can see exactly what speed the internal LFO is running at. And this is something really nice about all of the Soundtoys plugin. If you want to see the value of the knob, you just click on basically the rate in this case, and it'll show you the value that it's fixed at. Next, we have auto decay. Auto decay is where the magic happens for me in this plugin and why it's worth your money and your time. Auto decay is basically a docking effect. What it'll do, it reduces the decay time when it's engaged, and this will avoid reverb buildup. Reverb buildup happens when you feed it, let's say, with a percussive material where you will just add more and more and more and more reverb to a point that it just doesn't make sense. You will just have a lot of reverb and it'll just resembles a noise, and you don't want that. And this is where you will use auto decay. And to use it, we have 3 controls. Threshold, basically where it'll start working. Target, how much decay reduction we're applying. Recovery, or the release time, just like in a compressor, how much time it'll take the decay to get back to its normal timing after the auto decay stops working. Next, we have the stereo control in here, we have width control, and we have balance in here. And to finish it off, we have the output section in here. Basically, we have input-output controls, classic ones, and we have a mix knob in here. Now, this mix knob is really interesting because this plugin is designed to work as a send effect. If you want to use it as an insert effect, what Soundtoys did is they've created this mix knob that from 0 to 70%, what it'll do, it'll just add the wet signal and it won't really touch the dry signal. And between 70 and 100%, it'll take down the dry signal smoothly. So basically, you have all of this range where you're just adding wet signal, and just the last 30%, it'll take off the dry signal. And I think that this is really an interesting dry and wet knob because basically when you're using it as an insert effect, you won't affect the volume of the dry signal till you reach the last 30%. Now, that was a really quick overview. Let's hear it in action, shall we? So the first example I want to show you is how to use Superplate on leads. See, I like using plate reverbs on leads because they give them density in the stereo field and also a really nice character to them. And this is where Superplate actually comes in handy with its auto decay. Because the problem when putting a reverb on a lead is that at a certain point, especially in psytrance, since our leads are pretty percussive, we will have a buildup in reverb. And this buildup in reverb will mask the leads over time. If we hear this lead in here, we have this. See, I've set the auto decay in here to take the decay time to the minimum when the lead is playing, and by the end of it, with the release, we will get back to the 2 seconds decay time I've set in here, and this will give the delay a really nice and lush, kind of like a release, if that makes sense, and will make it fill up the space. Check this out. And if I'll turn it on, we'll get this. Did you hear how it filled up the space right after the lead by creating some sort of a release or a tail of the lead? And this made the lead actually blend with the lead that came right after it, or with the answering lead. Now let me show you the next example. Next example is how to use plate reverbs on snares. Now I like to give my snares a little bit of stereo width to help them stand out in the mix and fill up the space. And I like to do so using plate reverbs because, you know, plate reverbs also has a tiny bit of a dirtier character, if that makes sense. Superplate in here actually pushed things to the next level by using the transistor preamp in here, because this one, not only it'll like saturate a little bit, but since it has compression, it actually helped giving the snare some bite. Now I've set the reverb in here to the slowest decay time and just a tiny bit of mix, like 21.5%. Now, if we look at span in here on the correlation meter, check how it's giving it just a tiny bit of stereo width. So check this out. If I take it off and with all the drums, we'll get this. And if I'll add it, we'll get this. Did you hear how it helped the snare fill up the space a bit more? Now up to the next example. Third example, I want to show you how to get lush reverbs out of Superplate. So we have this pad in here. Pretty basic, kind of like analog saw pad in here. If I set the reverb in here to E plate 3, I just liked its flavor in this case. Preamp, again, transistor. I really love how this transistor thing is working. A lot of decay time, give it some mix, a lot of modulation, and slow rate on the modulation. See, it's like 0.7. And now we'll get this. So without it, we have this. And with it, we have this. See, it gave it this warm and gritty character, and I really love this about this plugin. Now, let's move to the verdict. I've been waiting for this plugin since 2017, and I'm really not disappointed by the final product. I mean, the wait was really long, but the final product is incredible. It's warm. It's dirty, it has a really nice character to it. Like, for me, plate reverbs are usually a bit colder, at least the plugins that I've used, but this one has this really lush and warm character to it that makes it stand out. Will it become my go-to plate plugin? 100%. Will it replace all of my plate reverbs? I don't think so. See, if I'm going to compare it to its biggest competitor, the Valhalla plate reverb, that one I can use creatively to add some weird artifacts to the sound, like a funky character. This one is more of a traditional plate, like I can use it just to give a really nice, lush and warm reverb to the sound, like to just like give a big hug to the sound, if that makes sense. And with this is the end of this tutorial. I really hope you've liked it. I really hope you've learned something new. See you next time.